Hello and welcome everybody to the 167 podcast. In today's episode, we are talking all things mental health. So why don't you get the notebook out, get some friends around, anybody who needs to hear this, and we'll see you in a little bit. There's a saying in the Bible that knows everybody in your room in a coffee shop this message. Hello and welcome everybody to the 167 podcast. It's so good to have you guys here today, joining us via YouTube or listening on the audio podcast. We've got a very special episode happening today. We have got a guest in the house. Sandra de Abreu is joining us. It is going to be a phenomenal episode. We're talking all things mental health. I know that all the Swen fans in the house are going to miss Swen, but I can assure you he will be back next time. The next time we film, he'll be back with us. But I just want to welcome everybody to the podcast today. If you are joining us for the very first time, really what the 167 podcast is, it's based on the concept that there is 168 hours in the week. Maybe one of those hours are spent in a church or in a house of worship somewhere. You still have 167 other hours in which you can grow, in which you can become more like Jesus, and in which you can take steps of personal development. So that's what we like to do. We like to have life-giving conversations where we can do exactly that. It's normally myself and Swen, or maybe we're joined sometimes by Dumi, the very wise Dumi. But today we've got a guest in the house, Sandra, who's going to be speaking to us a little bit about mental health. We're going to ask some really cool questions. But before we do that, why don't we just find out who Sandra is. Sandra, hello, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. I'm
Awesome.
so honored to be here and
Great.
to talk about such a relevant topic.
Yeah.
Right? 2021, mental health, which is so prevalent in all our lives at the moment. It's a hot topic. It's a trend right now to be talking, and I'm just feeling grateful to be able to start that conversation about something so prevalent right now.
Jeez, the honor is all ours. Thank you so much. You and your family, you're amazing members of our church, and you guys are next level people. Maybe you can just tell us a little bit about your family, what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm a mom of two, first and foremost.
Come on, somebody.
So actually, Eva Rose, it's her birthday today. She turned 7 years old.
What?
So yes, giving up some time. From here, we're going straight to have some cake at home with
Let's
the family. So very excited.
Are parents still doing spur birthdays? Is that still a thing?
That is totally a thing.
Because that was my, like Chico the Clown, that was like me.
With the little cone
Little
upside
cone.
down.
Okay, so if that's still a thing, then hopefully when I have kids, we can still do that. Anyway.
No, you have to have
It's like
a
a
spur
tradition.
birthday. Absolutely.
All right, okay, cool, got it.
So we're not doing spur today. However, maybe next week Tuesday.
Great.
We've done it a couple of weeks back. Never gets old. So yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So mom of two, very passionate about mental health or mental awareness, mental health awareness. I currently head up wellness at Generation Schools.
What?
So over nine different campuses, a primary and high school. I see to the health and wellness of the staff members, but also oversee for the students. So this is very close to my heart and something, daily I'm faced with and looking into and learning more about. So very passionate. Married to David,
Nice.
my beautiful husband, who's on the other extreme. He's into fast food and food industry, so
Come on.
an entrepreneur.
And he's a
there.
mean football player.
He plays soccer, yes.
Supports
he
a good
does.
club as well.
Well, apparently so. I'm a Man United supporter.
No.
No, I'm kidding.
The tensions,
I
the
would have to
household
sleep on the
tension.
couch. No. So, yes, so that is my family in a nutshell.
That is
Yeah.
amazing, man.
Yes.
So good. And it sounds like a really balanced kind of lifestyle that you guys live or try to live, as we all do.
Yeah, well, so on one hand, we're like, what did you have? Did you have enough water this morning and a smoothie? And then we got Dave, who's like fast food. So it works out well.
I love it, man. Well, listen,
Yeah.
it's so good, a huge honor kind of to have you on the podcast to speak a bit about mental health. And like you're saying, it's something that is really big.
Yeah.
And I feel from a church perspective, it's often something that we don't get to speak about enough.
Yeah.
Often you're made to feel like there's something wrong with you if you have these issues and you have mental health problems and things like that. So today, hopefully we can maybe debunk some of these things, some of these thoughts from a church perspective, but even maybe you could give us some wisdom or insight into what you're maybe facing every day. So you're working with kids.
Well, kids as well. I work very closely. We're a team. We've just actually, again, so much exciting things happening today. We took on our 7th member of our wellness team.
Yes.
Where my team works predominantly with the students. So I started off with the students, and it's branched out with the employees or the educators.
Oh, the staff. Very cool.
Yeah, the staff. I sit with parents often. And so my focus is overseeing the team and then obviously supervising some of the cases. So I get to understand over the different areas what the trends are, what the themes are, what the issues that are arising. So yeah, I feel like I've got a really good understanding right now of what the needs of our youth are, but also our first line workers or our front line workers, which are educators.
Yeah. Well, why don't we start with students?
Yeah.
I think that it's a great place to start, and often what freaks me out sometimes is I was involved with youth ministry, and I would often go to schools and we would do talks and outreaches, and I remember specifically there was an example of when I went to a school and I went to go chat with their grade 6s, which are 11 to 12 years old, and the things and the questions that I was being asked by them, I just tried to recall of the types of questions I was asking when I was 11, 12 years old, and it just felt very different.
Yeah.
It felt like things have advanced and have moved on quite quickly from maybe where it was 10 years or 20 years before. What are some of the things that you are facing or just coming across with some of the students with regards to mental health today?
Well, I think it's worth mentioning the year we've just come out of, because I think that we can choose not to speak about it, but I think it is some of the major reasons, or it is the major reason why some of the increases are happening in terms of anxiety and depression. So, can we go there for a moment?
No, let's do it.
Last year, 2020, COVID year, and what does that mean for our students who had to mostly go online, for those who could, and for the ones who couldn't, were just isolated. Yeah, totally missed out. So what that did was we saw a huge increase, obviously, of social media or device usage. South Africa's statistics haven't come out yet, but if we look globally what the trends are, I mean, as far as nearly 40% increase in different disorders or mental health illnesses, globally. So we're still waiting for South Africa to come out with their stats. But you can see it in your community. You can see it in your children. Some of the themes right now, huge on our list, is anxiety amongst our youth and adolescents. Huge amounts of burnout for our employees, teachers, parents, because of the nature of what last year did. The extreme demands, specifically on our frontline workers, our nurses, our police, our educators, the demands still were there. And so they had to just keep going. So I remember quite clearly it was March, we got the news, and within 2 weeks we were online. And the expectation that everyone just had to keep on going, even in the midst of a global pandemic.
It was a brand new world for a lot of people as well. I mean, not everybody is technologically inclined, ready to jump online and do everything through a screen. You kind of had to adapt, be flexible, or kind of die out, effectively.
Totally. Now, for you and me, we have a limited understanding of what potentially a pandemic could mean.
Yeah.
But think about it for a moment. Our students and our children, our small children, our adolescents, they don't have the life experience to understand what this actually means.
Yeah.
And for a large part of it, there was huge conversations happening separate to them. So those addresses, right? Dear fellow South Africans, where we were sitting on our couch. That's a bit of post-traumatic stress right there.
Just hearing that.
Where, I found ourselves, myself and David, often having these conversations and then looking to the right, and our girls were watching and they were listening. Now, for us, again, we understand consequence, we understand vocabulary. They don't always, so they're filling a lot of the gaps in their mind themselves.
Wow.
And so our kids, stood by watching the world talk about these huge problems and didn't have the understanding of life experience to actually process what this all meant.
Oh my goodness.
So fast forward a little bit, what that meant was, parents were home for the first time in a while. And so there was so much good that came out of this. We have to look for the positives, right? But at the same time, our parents were home full time, but most of them were working. And so they were home, but they weren't present.
Yeah.
And again, I'm speaking of a lot of experience because I went straight online, Dave was online, and we were at our laptops. Our children saw us at home, but mom and dad weren't actually present.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of stress as well. Added to the conversations being had, not understanding what really this all means. I've still got young children. My oldest is 10, so if we look at the adolescents and what they were faced with, they seek comfort and refuge in their cell phone and devices. And so they went straight there. So there was hours, you're talking like at least 8 hours a day, where students were just on a screen.
And during the hard lockdown, it's not like you could even say to your kid, hey, take the ball, go find 5 of your friends, go to the park. I mean, things that we used to do maybe when we were younger, you probably left. I mean, I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine that there were probably very few arrows in your quiver or options that you had for your kids in some of those harder lockdown times.
Exactly. And so what we would normally teach, right, when you are facing great adversity is, okay, we need to look after our mental wellness. And what does that normally look like? Go get some fresh air, do some exercise, connect with friends. So all that was taken away from us. So we were forced into isolation. And for some, it was better than others. Some had families and some didn't. We got to take all of these factors into consideration. And so we were left with nothing much but devices to keep us comfort. So, when we look at all of that, what we are now seeing coming out of this is a huge increase in anxiety, social anxiety with our students. So we could they look the same, but they present sort of different. So in our students, there's a lot of isolating. There's a lot of self-harm, which we all know, because there's just no processing or skills in order to deal with these big emotions. So self-harm is on the rise. Silently depressed. What that looks like is, the child just starts to regress and go back into their own world and not really speak out, and they look like they are doing okay. But again, no vocabulary to talk about what's really happening on the inside. So definitely increases in that way. We've seen just a lack of interest in social interactions. So because we were forced into a space of isolation for so long, it just doesn't seem natural to go back to socializing face to face. Because it's so much easier behind a screen. But we know that as humans, we need this interaction.
I mean,
so
we were talking about it the other day, myself and Swen, and obviously we work for a church. So coming back to church was a big thing. But even for us, we had to be like, well, we kind of are used to this new normal, this new way of doing things. And now we've got to get back in the building, get back with people. And it was a total mindset shift that we had to make as adults. Can you imagine how much harder it would be for students, for children who aren't able really to comprehend and then to work through a lot of what was happening. So even I can totally understand that being an issue. But Sandra, maybe from a parent's perspective, someone who's now obviously a little bit older are able and have the tools to work through some of the things. You've now got a kid and who's now gone through this year. Maybe if you're thinking about it now, you haven't noticed anything, or maybe you have. What do you think are like one or two? I mean, it's hard to say, but what do you think are one or two things that parents can begin to do just to be able to check up or even just get an idea of how my child is doing mentally and from a mental health perspective?
That's a great question. And I think it looks so different for the different age groups.
Big time.
Right? Because you don't want to sit with your 16-year-old and be like, so tell me how you're feeling.
How do you feel?
How does that make you
My
feel?
mom asked me that at 16. Luckily I was in boarding school, so I had a random hostel father asking me how that was going. Not too well.
Well, you see, so you've got to connect in the different ways. And I think we ran a lot of webinars, online webinars for parents about anxiety. And, there was all these behaviors presenting in different ways, depending on how old the child was. So first and foremost, we need to normalize it, okay? Because I think that as a parent, you put so much pressure on yourself.
Good.
I mean, I had
Very
parents
good.
talking to me like, my child's bedwetting, or they're tantruming, or they're just not engaged at all. I find them in their room. There's been self-harm, and all these varying issues or concerns. But at the end of the day, they're all speaking the same sort of message, that there was this increase in anxiety. They just didn't know how to process, and a lot of the times it came out in these strange behaviors. And so as a parent, you immediately go inward, and you kind of trying to understand, where have I gone wrong? What can I do more of? So I think first and foremost, it's important to normalize these changes in our children.
That's very helpful.
Okay. And I remember saying, I give you permission to remove the guilt as a parent right now.
But that's tough. Because as a parent, won't you look at your child, and this is the product of my parenting, my disciplining, or my whatever the deal is, and think, this is my fault.
Totally. I mean, I had, Shem, my poor girls, I've always been quite vocal about emotion and, processing and all of that. So I had my, then at the time, 9-year-old come to me, push my laptop down, and she said to me, Mom, you need to prioritize. I am here, and yet you are just staring at the PC.
Oh, my hat.
And so for her to verbalize that immediately, that mom guilt, and I was like,
Yeah.
boom. And then I had to try and make her understand that, I'm working still, even though I'm here, I'm not, I have to tend to certain things.
Big time.
So I think it helped me, and I know, speaking from experience to when I sat with other parents, that you actually have to normalize and remove the guilt. Okay,
Wow,
number one.
That's great, yeah.
And once you've done that, it's like, okay, so now we're aware that our children are behaving or presenting in this way. What can we then do?
Yeah.
And awareness is key here, because
Yeah.
once you are aware, then you can choose something different, right?
Yeah.
So what does that look like? I had, you don't know, again, the stress it puts on a child, specifically in primary school, where they go to school for a full day, where people's mouths are covered. There's a social distancing element to it, where they can't actually go up and hug, or they're feeling sad, or hold their teacher's hand. There was all this space created. I said, don't underestimate the power of just coming home and holding.
Yeah.
And touching. Yeah, but my child's a bit old for it. No, they're not.
So you think that's relevant for teenagers?
Yes. Okay. They might not always welcome it, but you can
Yeah.
get really creative with how that looks.
Big time.
With brushing of hair, or even just painting of nails, or massaging,
Yeah.
or the physical touch. When we are touched with the body, endorphins are released.
Wow.
And what endorphins do is those are the feel-good hormones in the body. And so what we saw over this last year, there was just a lack of that. There was
Yeah.
no touch. We don't touch each other now. It's always this awkward, like, do we elbow, do we shake? And for children, specifically young children, that's how they develop, through touch.
Jeez.
They're very sensory, so they want to touch everything. They want to be held when they're feeling
Yeah.
sad. That was just removed.
I can resonate so much with that. I was in an all-boys school, so you could
Yeah.
be thinking, oh, this could be weird. Not at
Yeah.
all. Just like grabbing, like how boys will like shake hands
Yes.
and greeting guys like that. I love that.
Yeah.
I think I used to, that's how we would greet. That's how we would like show that you care about somebody, that you're happy to see them.
Yep.
Even when you're saying goodbye, like that was huge. Wow, this
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense.
No, totally. So, I sat with parents. I said, hold your children before bed. Just hold them. It sounds so silly. Grab their hand. Give them more hugs, because
Wow.
that is missing. Okay, so first and foremost, the physical touch. And then actually, a lot of adults who didn't have that significant other, I said, okay, don't underestimate. Just get some cream out and start rubbing your body.
Wow.
Give yourself some love, and in the tactile form.
Yes.
So again, releasing those hormones, those feel-good hormones that we lacked from those embraces that we would get. The huggers really struggled because there was none of that happening.
The huggers, they did struggle.
They really did. I was one of them. I'm now like getting used to the elbow thing, and that's weird for me.
Yeah, the elbow thing
I don't
is
get
weird.
it.
I still don't get the elbow
I
thing.
don't feel like there's so many nerve endings on an elbow.
It's bad. I reverted to the fist bump, but
Yeah.
I feel like that's still hands though. So
Yeah.
I'm actually not really being very COVID savvy.
Yeah.
But the elbow thing, I just never got it.
Yeah. So it's all weird. It's
Yeah,
all weird.
yeah.
It's a weird time to be alive.
That it is.
So with your kids, it's like go back to the basics. Touch, spend time, eye contact, mouth, smiles. They've missed that the entire day.
Very
so
good.
a lot of the time, us as parents, we're cooking, we're on our laptops, and we're not actually eye contact and looking and talking. It's just go back to the basics.
Yeah.
Think about everything that's missing and go back to that.
I love that. That's so practical.
Yeah, easy, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, that's a bit too easy and a little bit too fluffy. But no, I've seen it work in my own house, in my own space, where it's just that time before bed where we sit and we just embrace and we talk and we pray
Wow,
together. There's so much power in that. And I've seen those days where I haven't had the moment, I've seen the behavior come out in other ways. So let's go back to basics.
I love that. Back to basics. That's amazing. You mentioned something, and maybe even as we begin to shift the focus, such helpful advice. Thank you so much for that. And for any parents that are watching, that's stuff that we can apply today.
Yeah.
There's no degree needed
No.
to add that type of thing to your kid's life and to your life. So thank you so much for that.
Cool.
Maybe as we begin to shift the focus, you mentioned a word that I think is quite popular, is burnout. And as we begin to shift the focus to maybe adults and even young professionals that are also have to navigate COVID, but have got this mental health and have got issues, I feel like definitely with the young adults that I work with, a lot more vocal about it today, maybe than what it was 5 or 10 years ago. I feel like there's a bit more of an awareness if I struggle a bit with depression or I've got anxiety. So from that way, it's a bit easier to help. But this idea of burnout and busyness, do you think that there's a correlation between kind of being extremely busy, burning yourself out, feeling your tank is completely empty, and then mental health, and possibly the negative side of mental health.
Well, absolutely. I think being extremely busy is celebrated, right?
Big time.
So,
I mean, you get a star. Like if I work over like I'm doing too many hours and I'm always at work and stuff like that, you almost think, geez, what a hardworking guy or lady. She's the best.
Totally. So, I mean, there's very little balance. If you're in a working space or a mom or something or a father or in a space which requires a lot of you, it's normally celebrated that you're constantly busy or you're constantly achieving or you're onto something new.
Yeah.
So it's hard now to bring awareness to, okay, how do we create balance? So burnout, absolutely. I'm seeing huge amounts of it now, just because what we have been through globally, emotionally.
Yeah.
I keep going back to COVID, but I think it's relative.
It's pretty relevant. So you're good.
You have to keep going back there because we've come out of a global trauma.
Big time.
And nobody's talking about it really.
Global trauma. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and that's what it is. And so the more we talk and we know about trauma, the more you can go there and talk about it and process and make sense of it, your brain actually starts to catch up and you start to be able to process some of the emotions attached to it.
Yeah.
So the stress response is decreased when we go there and we talk about it. So that's why I keep going back.
No, good. You're
purposely. So burnout, yes. It's what's happened is this huge trauma came about, and we had to keep on going. We had to isolate. There wasn't option to connect and talk. So normally when there's a trauma, what do you generally do? You get your support network or you reach out, and that wasn't happening.
No.
So what we found, and I'm going to be specific to teachers, but I suppose you can put it across any frontline worker.
Of course.
Is that you were going through the trauma, but you were expected to push on. There was no time to stop. There was no time to actually say, what are you needing? How are you feeling? You had to just keep going.
Well, there was a job, and it was a job that was changing, and we needed to get it done.
Yeah, and everybody did.
Yeah.
They did. And the downside of that is when you are in a stress or fight or flight response, a stress response.
Yeah.
You know, you've heard that sort of catchphrase.
Adrenaline.
Yes, it's pumping, right?
Yeah.
So if we look at the calendar now, how long has that been going on for?
Jeez, yeah.
So prolonged stress response, the downside of that is you reach burnout. Okay, so we've all been in this fight or flight, huge demands on us. Let's not put in, I mean, if you're lucky enough to have a job, if we're thinking about the people who didn't have that opportunity to keep on working, and that's a whole different stress, you know, a whole different angle at what this burnout might look like.
Time.
So here we sit. It's May. I'm seeing a huge rise in burnout because of the need to just keep on keeping on and pushing the trauma aside. There's no time to deal and talk about our emotions now. It's about just moving forward. Yeah. And so, just if we go into physiology, I mean, the natural processes in the body, the depletion of nutrients. If we look and the sort of alignment or the correlation between things like anxiety and depression. And here we sit, May, with all of these things happening.
You'd think that when life, I don't think we're there, to be honest, but you'd think when things got a little bit more normal, people would bounce back, but it actually seems different. It seems like now that things are settling, the real kind of stuff that had just been put down, where the adrenaline had taken over, and now your body is returning to, or your mind is returning to almost a normalcy, like some of the issues actually coming to the forefront now.
Well, that's what I love about our human body. Physiology is my thing.
Come on, let's go there. It's not my thing, so if you're here, let's talk about it.
Physiology 101. I love the human body. Everything about it is a miracle for me. Every process, every hormone, every cell in our body, just so miraculous. So our bodies are incredible with just getting us through. Okay, and that's what happened. So what happens when you're in a fight or flight? Cortisol levels jump, adrenaline, all those beautiful hormones do their thing and get us to today. Right? And when the coast is clear or the threat seems to, we sort of acclimatize to that, or the fear doesn't seem as big, those hormones start to drop. And then it's like, whoa, oh my word. Emotions now, it's safe to actually start to feel.
Yes.
And this is what we're doing now. I suppose you can say there's a level of acclimatization.
I think so, yeah.
Starting to get a little bit normal, to fist pump or, we're getting over it.
Yeah.
Also a beautiful thing that's happening in most cases is resilience is forming.
Okay.
We'll talk about that in a second.
Yeah,
'cause
we will.
Resilience is the key here. And it's the growth opportunity. If we look at such a horrible situation, I always choose to look at the positive. And if we
Great.
can focus on what is rather than what isn't, I think that's how we move forward.
Very good.
Yeah, so now we are feeling. And so this is why some people are actually experiencing the big emotions now. Because I think the threat is lowered in a way, and it's just the realness of the situation, the loss potentially. A lot of people have lost loved ones, lost marriages. There's been a huge increase in relationship breakups, which has been devastating to see, and the sort of the collateral damage that it's had on the children.
Yeah.
So now people are starting to feel.
Yeah.
And that's why it feels so real now.
Yeah.
And that's why this is so important, because we need to talk about it. When we talk about it, we start to normalize these things, and we actually realize we're not alone. We're kind of collectively going through this, and that there's something about that makes it feel a little bit better.
Do you think the average South African talks about this type of thing?
No, not enough. It's starting, like you said, there's a movement where we can actually verbalize that, depression, anxiety, or feeling anxious or overwhelmed.
Are those words as like taboo as what they were like 10, 15, 20 years ago?
No, I'd like to say they're sometimes overused a little bit.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we could go there as well, of course.
We could, and some people own that label. It's definitely, there's more awareness. I'd like to say people are more woke now.
Yeah, there you go. Reaching the young people.
There we go. There's more conversation about it, but I think the more we can just normalize it and talk about it, then it becomes okay, especially for those people who aren't okay with talking about it, but they're seeing more and more people talk about it, so they might just put up their hand and be like, you know what, I'm not okay, and I'm needing some help or support.
Yeah.
And those are the people you want to reach, because it's the people who aren't saying anything, keeping it all to themselves and isolating. Those are the people you want to reach.
Maybe even on that, we could have people in our lives, family members, parents.
Yeah.
Like you're saying, it's been I love that, global trauma. It's been traumatic what people have had to go through. Job loss, lives have been lost. A lot has been taken away. It's like a trauma. Yeah. And people could be, like you're saying, they're beginning to feel now, and we could have people in our lives, friends, family members, and we could be seeing some sort of form of mental illness or anxiety or depression. What would you say is a great way to strike up a conversation without maybe coming across as offensive or coming across in a way that seems insensitive, but really in a way that's, hey, I love you. Yeah. And this is something that we can speak about and probably get the better of if we go through the right ways. Maybe there's tricks or tools that you've got that could help some people.
Well, yeah, I think each situation is so unique. Totally. And again, I speak to so many different age groups. So I think consistency is key here. Yeah. Sometimes we see somebody who's going through something, and our first reaction is to fix or take it away. And I think when you're experiencing anxiety or depression or any of those things, or those huge emotions, it's not our job to try and fix or take away.
So good, yeah.
It's just, I'm going to arrive here and I'm going to be present, and I'm not going to try and take away from what you're feeling.
Very good. This is great, yeah.
But I'm just going to show up every day. Good, and I love the question, what are you needing?
Yeah, very good.
I don't think we ask that enough. And when I do ask it, nobody actually knows how to answer that.
Wow.
It's like, what are you needing right now? Like a glass of water, or like to ask for forgiveness, or just me to sit in silence with you. So I think just showing up, there's no recipe here. Like you see someone who's showing these symptoms, this is what you do.
X, Y, and Z.
No. Just be there and acknowledge them for what they're going through, and don't try and take it away. And just, obviously, depending on what they're presenting with, you want to get them some help if it's very serious. If you don't know, ask. There's so many great platforms. You can go online. We've got some great organizations just in our area where you can reach out and just ask those questions if you're unsure. Yeah. If it is a child or an adolescent, you want to reach out to an adult.
Yes.
If there's any sort of talk of feeling helpless or hopeless, suicidal ideation, any self-harm, anything like that, reach out to an adult first and foremost. And then hopefully you'll be guided in the right way where you can get help.
Yes.
But as a friend, just show up. Just keep showing up.
That's so good, because how true is that? We just want to save and rescue, but for a large part of it, I'm sure the person who's experiencing those difficulties might not even know, like, hey, this is how you can fix this. These could be very new, very raw emotions, and just having someone who's there and who cares about them, that could do the trick. You mentioned resilience.
Yeah.
I'd love for you to speak on that.
Resilience. Well, like what is resilience?
Yeah.
It's a big word that we're using and
It's a
throwing
cool
away.
word. I like resilience. Yeah.
So firstly, there's an element of being aware of the stressor or something bad in your world that is happening. So we want to bring awareness to it.
Yeah.
And then we want to be able to reflect or process what that looks like.
Yeah.
And I speak about awareness so much is because there's so much power in awareness. When we can talk about it, like, sure, this has been hectic, we can then bring to awareness what we are actually going through, experiencing, processing.
Yeah.
And then the magic happens, because then we can actually choose to do something different.
Very good.
Or be different in
Yeah.
some way. And so resilience is, it looks like daily practices. It looks like conversations had. It looks like creating a time and space where you can stop and reflect.
Yeah.
And that looks different for everybody.
Yeah.
So there's obviously techniques we'll teach. There's workshops we do with students, positive affirmations, all those sort of fluffy things.
I love positive affirmation.
Which
When my wife says nice things to me, I feel really good.
Well, there we go. It does something to just the power of our words.
Big time.
Right?
I love the love languages thing. I don't know if you,
Yeah.
So I'm not much for gifts. I'm not much for acts of service, kind of. But if you can say nice things to me and like tell me I'm doing a good job, like I perk up like a puppy. And
Well,
I'm
there
like,
we go.
cool, I'll keep doing this at 100%. It's crazy how words, for me specifically, words are just the trick.
Yeah, and for most people. So,
Yeah.
so Phil, you're doing an incredible job.
Wow, let's just keep going, guys. I'm loving this.
Well, it's so true. And Sven actually spoke beautifully on Dr. Caroline Leaf. I'm a big
Yes.
follower.
Caroline Leaf's awesome.
Yeah, she's actually got an app that you could download, 21-day brain detox, something along those lines. And she speaks about the power of your words.
Wow.
And she takes it into the whole scientific, neurological, physiological sort of explanation. So for me, that speaks to me.
That's brilliant. So
Yeah.
if you guys are watching, so just mention that
Dr.
again.
Caroline Leaf.
And then the name of her
She's,
app?
I think it's, stand to be corrected, you can just Google her, Dr.
Yes.
Caroline Leaf, 21-day brain detox.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you guys are looking for something cool like that, something practical and that can take you on that journey, I think that's a great resource.
Yeah,
Awesome.
and it's awesome because she brings science and she also brings Christianity together.
Love that.
So for me, that was just awesome, ticking both boxes because
Yes.
they both speak to me and it just made so much sense.
Yeah.
I follow her teachings a lot because it just makes scientific sense, but also spiritual sense.
Great.
It makes, and she brings the two together so beautifully. And it talks about the power of our words and how just by saying the word, even if we don't fully believe it, it already starts to rewire our brain
crazy.
into new ways of being.
Yeah.
Okay, so it starts to just by saying, you are incredible, you are great, even
Yeah.
if you're not feeling it or thinking it.
Yeah.
What happens in our brain is it sets off a whole action pathway where new neural pathways are formed.
Jeez.
And she gives a little pictures of it so it makes a lot more sense for people who are not scientifically or physiology.
It's very nice of you to talk
Yes.
about me like that.
Not everyone, this doesn't tick everybody, but
Sure.
I absolutely love it. So power of our words.
Yeah.
And I think there's so much in that. So we speak about just be kind. Just be kind to people. And you don't know what that one affirmation, you could say it to yourself, but also to somebody else
Yeah.
could mean for them.
Yeah.
So you could really just trigger the pathway to new growth. So power of our words.
I don't know if you find this, but like for guys especially, there's definitely a culture of like dissing and mocking and stuff like that. And it's not like like I do it, but it's like I want to say it's in a loving way because it really is, and it's a way of kind of building. And I just want to maybe chat about this for a little bit, just building kind of, maybe it's a friendship thing or whatever the deal is, and you can have fun with it and you can have a laugh. At what point do you think does that become a little dangerous? Because I think we do that 100% more. I actually think it's weird if I had to stop one of my close friends now and just encourage them.
Yeah.
And just be like, dude, I love the way that you do. Like that would actually be strange.
Totally. Look, there's a time and place. You can't walk around being like, you're amazing and so are you and you're just great.
Seems insincere.
Yeah, so there's a time and a place, and there's absolutely a time and a place to play around and fool around. But you know when you've overstepped. You know that
Big
little
time.
feeling I talk about in the pit of your stomach?
Yeah, it's right. It's down there.
Okay, so you're like, oh, okay, yeah, a little bit, So there's a time and a place, and I think if you're going to play around, perhaps in front of people and make jokes, there might be a time later in the day to just pick it up and be like, oh, thanks for earlier on, or I really appreciate it
Don't
when
want
you
to
do
leave it
that.
there.
Yeah, so I think, use your intuition. I think there's a
Yeah.
huge part there, that little feeling in the pit of your stomach. Like
Yeah.
that didn't sit well. I noticed the body language as soon as I made that last comment.
Changed.
Yeah.
Because a lot of it's tongue in cheek,
Yeah.
and I want to mention it because I think it is very much ingrained in a lot of our culture.
Yeah.
You know, we do that, and it can be funny and it can be fun, but also, you know, even we learn in Scripture the power of our words
Yes.
and the power of your tongue.
Yeah.
Actually, is life and death.
Yeah.
So we want to be wise and good stewards of that power.
Absolutely.
And to be able to turn it. And like you said, it would be a little weird if we were just like, hey, you know, you're the best
You're
and
great.
amazing and love you and love all you guys. People think this guy's crazy.
Yeah.
But I love that. It's like coming back. If you did say something, even if it's in a joke way, coming back to that and just kind
Yeah.
of closing that off with something that's positive.
Yeah.
This has been amazing. I've loved this
Oh,
conversation. Jeez,
awesome.
you've got so much wisdom. Maybe as we begin to bring things down, I'd love to speak quickly into just normal life. You know, someone who's just trying to navigate, just trying to get through work life, family life, parenthood, all of those things. What are some things we can introduce into our schedules? Everybody's busy. We know that.
Yeah.
Are there some things that we can introduce into our lives that can help cultivate a healthier way of doing, a healthier mental health and just a healthier way of living
Yeah,
that can cultivate
absolutely.
something that's just going to be more positive in the long run, beneficial?
Absolutely. Oh, there's so many things. And if we just start with, can we be a little bit more patient with ourselves?
Yeah, big time.
Okay, because I think we've put so much high expectations. There's so much we're carrying right now. A little bit of patience goes so far. So
Yeah.
again, sometimes it's just about looking at that person when I sit with them. It's like I give you permission to not do anything now, or to actually take the weight of the world off your shoulders.
Yeah.
So patience, if I could say. But in terms of practices, absolutely. So if you are not creating a time and space in the day for reflection of some sort,
Yeah.
there's scientific evidence now that shows prayer and meditation,
Yeah.
whatever that looks for you, where it's you still the mind, you quieten the
Slow
mind,
down.
yes, and you stop.
Yeah.
It shows an increase in immunity, but it also shows an ability to move past a really stressful situation with more ease than someone
Wow.
who doesn't put that practice in place. So we have to become more cognizant of, okay, so I'm wanting to be more mentally strong. It doesn't just happen. You've got to put some practice, right? Like you
Yeah.
would in the gym,
Yeah.
keeping your body physically well. The same thing applies to the mind.
Yeah.
If you're not putting daily practice in place, it's no wonder that on Sunday evening you get there and it's like completely wired and doesn't know how you're going to do another week.
Yeah.
So I think small daily practices.
Yeah.
That is my thing, and that can be as small as starting the morning with a worship song right
Great.
before you get out of bed.
I love that.
For me, the best way to quieten the mind is with some praise and worship.
Awesome.
Sometimes prayer in the silence I struggle with.
Yeah.
So the praise and worships takes over that space for me, and it commands a space of just stillness.
Gives
for
you
me.
something to focus on, but
Yeah.
isn't going to distract you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So whether it's just a song in the morning right before you roll out of bed,
I love that.
some deep breathing,
Yeah.
diaphragmatic breathing, which I also teach in our practice. So it's that deep breathing, visualizations of releasing.
Very good.
So it sounds so silly, but movement, and what that might look like is putting on a song really loudly and dancing like
Yeah.
nobody is watching.
Yeah.
Okay, there's something about that.
I love that.
To release some energy, talking, reaching out. So something as silly as we've lost the culture of sitting around the dinner table.
We have. Yeah.
Gather your family, anybody you have in the home, or a phone call right before bed to a loved one.
Yeah.
Start to connect. So I guess we could look at it, journaling. We could look at, positive affirmations in the mirror. You are amazing. You know,
Yeah.
anything that stops you from the rush of the day, from the stress and the pressures of life, to actually stop, reflect, go inward, and then move forward.
Yeah.
So small daily practices.
I love that.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome because often when you're tired, you want to do the thing that you think is going to help you switch your brain off, which could be binging series or chilling on Instagram
Yeah.
or Facebook, and then you can live right past your spouse or your family.
Yeah.
But in you're justifying it because you're so tired and the day's been so long.
Yes.
You need something that just switches the brain off. And I don't think that stuff is evil.
No. There's a time and a place. So can I just
Yeah.
speak on social media for 1 second, please?
Yeah, let's go.
Can we protect ourselves? So right now, when we are all globally going through this beautiful trauma, if we can call it that,
Yeah.
we need to create beautiful boundaries where we can start to protect or guard our heart, I'd like to say.
Great.
So things that trigger you, for example, social media. If you don't leave the social media platform feeling uplifted and rejuvenated, that's normally a sign that it doesn't work for you, or
That's very good. That's a good way to look at it because I don't think we think about it like that.
Yeah. So if you are leaving more drained or filled with maybe jealousy anxiety or
Yeah.
frustration or anger, then that's a sign normally that it's not serving you.
Yeah.
So just be mindful with how much time you place there.
Sure.
Again, awareness, that's
Yeah.
all. So I'm not saying stop social media because I'm the first one to go and check and scroll. But it's like, how much time are you placing there and what are you consuming with your
Yeah.
eyes and your mind, okay?
And how do you feel when you get off?
So those articles. And so there's a huge fear factor now with the whole pandemic. Like, how do you guard your mind with information that you need to take on, but then also information that you don't really need to take on?
Yeah,
It's
good.
not going to serve you. It's not going to
No.
build you up. And I'd say for those really struggling with the fear around COVID-19 and the situation of the world right now, guard yourself, guard your heart with what you are putting in, the conversations you are being
Yeah.
around. And be more protective of your space, of your mental well-being at this time.
Even if it's for a season, you just don't
Totally.
you don't get too active on reading the news every morning.
Totally.
Or whatever, using it in one of your Instagram or social media platforms. It doesn't have to be permanently, but I love that. Just
Yeah.
guard where you are. I mean, scripture says guard your heart.
Yeah.
If your heart isn't guarded, it's going to affect all other aspects and spheres of your life. But what you think is helping you switch off could be the very thing that's keeping you in this rut and in this like, oh, I can't get out of this space.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. Sometimes the first thing that you go to unwind is social media, and that's cool. Listen, I can watch some amazing animal videos.
No, I'm there. I'm with you. I'm with you there.
So I'm either watching some heavy like mental illness awareness stuff,
Yeah.
or I'm doing animal videos. There's two sides to me.
I love that. Ever since I got dogs, I've
yeah.
got this Facebook page, The Dodo, I think it's called, and
Yes.
I'm always watching their videos. It always starts sad and then ends happy.
Yes.
Just takes me on a journey. I love those videos. But not every experience on social media is like that.
Yeah.
When you get off feeling like
Yeah,
that.
no. There's a lot. I'm saying that's a small part of it, but yeah,
Yeah.
just guard your health, your mental wellness and your space. But one more thing, and
Yeah.
we're talking really long now, and I can speak for hours on this.
All good.
But giving back, if you are feeling as if you are able to, and you're feeling good,
Yeah.
it's now shown as a coping mechanism and actually a strategy to deal with great amounts of stress to actually get into a community or give or serve somebody else.
So good, yeah.
So the servant heart, when times are tough and when
Yeah.
times are unknown and if you're feeling overwhelmed, to actually reach out to the people around you and give back.
Sure.
It's now been proven scientifically, don't quote me, I actually read an article this morning, it's been proven that that's actually a coping strategy.
Very
But
good.
when you're feeling completely overwhelmed, or when you're feeling actually really good, that's the best time to actually spill over.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to bring the Bible into everything.
No, but if it's true, right?
If you refresh others, you yourself will be refreshed.
That's it.
It's this thing where
That's it.
I think we as people, and it's probably how God has made us, that when you can serve people, I just feel better after giving.
Yes.
It's not always financial, but just giving
Yeah.
of your time or your energy, it does release something in you. And I'm
Yeah.
not just because I'm super holy, which I'm
Yeah,
not,
yeah.
but just there's just something about it. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody said, hey, it's scientifically, it's this hormone and this or whatever the deal is,
Yeah.
but it's good for you to love and to help other people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's something that happens within you when you do those acts.
Yeah, big time.
So, yeah.
I love that. Sandra, this has been so cool.
Awesome.
I feel like that we could probably talk for another few hours.
Yeah, I didn't get to my notes yet.
You didn't get to your notes yet,
No, I'm kidding.
but we are definitely I think we should do something like this again.
Yeah,
Maybe
totally.
tackle something specific, but this has been amazing.
Amazing.
And we really hope that this has helped you if you're watching this and have been a part of this. Please, what we love to do is we want to interact with our community big time. So if there's anything, we've got Sandra's WhatsApp number. So if there's anything,
Don't spam me.
any questions, anything
Yeah.
that has come to mind or anything that we weren't able to touch on today, please, you can drop them in the comments, or if you would like to remain anonymous, you can Instagram DM us on our Instagram page. You've also got an email address. We'll put all of those details in the comment section below. We'd love to keep helping you. This is an ongoing conversation. I don't think
Perfect.
this is a one and done
Absolutely.
type thing. We want to
Totally.
keep growing. We want to keep getting better. So I hope that has been that for you. We haven't been able to go into everything, but if there is anything that you'd love for us to share on or just help you with personally, please reach out to us. We'd love to do that. I'll remind you of all of our pages. We've got the YouTube page where you can watch the video. We're also on Instagram. We've also got email. And if you listen to this via our podcasting app, please like and rate the podcast. It just helps us reach more people, become more seen, more visible across the podcasting app. And if you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, like the channel, drop a comment. All of that stuff helps. But this has been amazing. Sandra, again, thank you so
Awesome.
much. This has been
Absolute
next
pleasure.
level.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for starting the conversation. Yeah.
Come on, we're going to keep going. Keep
Totally.
getting better. We really appreciate you. And to
Awesome.
everybody who's joined us, thank you so much. We trust that you guys have an amazing rest of your time. We'll see you the next time we're running an episode. God bless you.
God bless you.